All right, so that was a small video clip of Jamshedpur Management Association and what all we do. So thank you and welcome. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Let me check again.
Yes, you are.
Yes, Ashmita.
Thank
Yes, you are.
thank you. Thank you so much. So on behalf of Jamshedpur Management Association, I, Asmita, the center head at JMA, welcome all of you for today's session, Women Transforming Brands, which is a small step towards celebrating International Women's Day. In the realm of business every day, women bring a unique perspective characterized by resilience, creativity, and empathy. The transformative influence extends beyond profit margins and market shares. It encompasses a holistic approach to businesses that prioritize sustainability, social responsibility, and ethical leadership. Our theme for today, Women Transforming Brands, underscores the pivotal role that women play in reshaping and redefining the landscape of business and branding. From visionary leaders to innovative entrepreneurs, women have been instrumental in driving change, fostering inclusivity, and championing diversity within the corporate sphere. We have two such powerful and wonderful speakers with us today. I request Professor Giridhar Ramachandran, marketing expert from XLRI Jamshedpur and JMA Academic Council Chair, to please welcome and introduce our speakers. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Asmita. It's when Asmita and Amitabh asked me early in the early today to do this exercise. I was not very sure who the speakers are, but now I'm really in awe of the kind of people that they've been able to line up for this occasion, and it is really my privilege and honor to be introducing both of you and both the speakers. I'll start with Ms. Sangeeta Talwar. While many of us might not know her specifically as as the person and her and her career progression, all of us are sure to have reap the benefits of her effort, right? Who does not know what Maggie is, right? And I think when ma'am started, Maggie was trying to compete with samosa, and now we have Maggie samosa, right? So and that's a testament to the kind of work she has been able to do. So she's the first speaker. She's an independent. Miss Sangeeta Talwar is a independent director from the board of companies. Like we all know, she's a creator of brands Maggie, and she's also been done a fantastic job with Tata Tea as well. In a career spanning over 30 years, Ms. Talwar has worked across large businesses of European, American, and Indian corporations. She has worked largely with the corporate sector in India and in Switzerland. Ms. Talwar has spearheaded the implementation of a national level social sector and a World Bank funded project in rural India. We would really like to know more about that, ma'am. She is perhaps the first lady in the consumer products industry in India who has had multifunctional exposure across marketing, sales, and human resources as function head and later as CEO. I came across uh, um, some interview earlier today where somebody was asking a question to you about how was it feel to have been the first person women executive in Nestle, and I like the way you answer. It's like the John Lennon quote, right? But life was what happens when you're making busy when you're busy making plans about it, right? And I think you were just saying you were just doing ahead, doing your duty, and then found out suddenly that this is an interesting achievement that has come across as well.
That's right.
During her early years, ma'am helped craft, create, launch, and establish what we all know, the Maggie 2 minute noodles. And going forward, another powerful campaign that we all have seen, which is the Jagore campaign as part of Tata Tea, which won international acclaim. And and in Tata Tea, she was posted after Tata Tea. She was posted at Nestle headquarters in Switzerland for 3 years. She's traveled across Europe, US, Asia, and Latin America. She's now an independent director with several corporates, having experience across a diverse range of businesses from consumer products, energy, education, financial services to IT infrastructure and hardware distribution. Ms. Sangeeta Dalwa is a diversity speaker and author of the book, The 2 Minute Revolution, The Art of Growing Businesses. And she's also received several accolades like Business Today 30 most powerful women in India, India Today Women in the Corporate World, Women Super Achievers Award for outstanding contribution to social causes. Really, again, a honor to have you, ma'am. Request you to please share a few words.
Thank you, Professor Girtha. Do you want me to do that now?
We'll just share a little bit of your what kind of context you want to, or I can go ahead and introduce Anupriya as well, and then we can start.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is in the context of Women's Day, and I think my message to everybody, not only the women, is actually empower each one of us to make our own choices and then to stand by the consequences of those choices. And there are three words that I focus on, which I believe are very important in our journey of life and as professionals and as human beings. And that's courage, confidence, and compassion. And I will explain that at the end of our conversation today. And I just want to say that, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities I got. It's often that people don't get such wonderful opportunities as I did. And I think I accepted them with great humility and tried to do my best at every stage. And I never really thought of myself as a woman. I was always there in a role, in a job with a lot of colleagues. So what? They belong to a different gender. But I'd never let that sort of stand in my thought process or in my way. So I just want to stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I look forward to a lot more sharing from you pretty soon. Our second speaker today is Ms. Anupriya Agarwal. She's the founder of Maxworth Impact, a branding, digital media, and communications firm that works to launch a brand with its visual strategy, digital marketing strategy, social media content, and visual content. Anupriya hails from Lucknow, and she started a journey under the guidance and support of her entrepreneur father and his company, Maxworth Communication, and quickly went on to form her brand, Maxworth Impact. She's made a mark for herself as a brand marketer and social media strategist due to her impeccable creative and inquisitive skills. She has an unapologetic fetish for traveling and meeting new people, and there's never a dull moment around her, is what we all know. And a social enthusiast who confides in chai a lot. She's a true admirer of nature. She's a global shaper at the Global Shapers community, a member at Young Leaders Council IMA, and a volunteer at several other organizations and initiatives. She's been in this field for about 12 years, and she's realized the potential and the scope for the sector. And she's also a mentor at several educational institutions and incubators associated with them. Welcome, Anupriya. Request you to again share a few words.
Thank you so much, Professor. I already feel like a student. As you introduced yourself, you're a student of marketing with Sangeeta ma'am here at the call with all of you. I think I again feel like a student, and I was telling everybody in the morning that I want to go back to my college days and my learning days. So yes, I'm a marketer and I am the new age marketer. I think I was in college when ma'am started. So, and I started much after that. So I'm a new age marketer trying to stick to the base that branding is. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion today, where I feel all of us have something to learn. All of us have something to take back. So as ma'am said that we will interact, I would only request the audience to just be all out with all your questions, anything that you want to discuss about, any campaign that you want to point out and want us to talk. Maybe Asmita will help us in pointing that out, but I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, Anupriya. Asmita, do you want to set the thing now?
Thank you, Professor. So, ma'am, would you be starting the context setting? Would you like to add in anything
Yes, sure.
more?
No, I think we can start right away. We're already 10 minutes into our
I'll
timing.
just begin. I'll
Yeah.
begin by just setting the context, and I will begin by asking some questions. Let it be very interactive. So since we're talking about women and we're talking about International Women's Day, and we're also talking about women transforming brands. So then I would just like to start by saying that, women and brands, both for the last few years, have changed. They have grown in terms of um, using the traditional methods and adapting to technological changes, getting used to what we have as a base and what new things that are coming up in the market. So, having said that, I think there is a long way to go. We are still all students as far as brands are concerned, as far as women are concerned, and the whole market is huge. The ecosystem is huge. So today's session, I would just like to start with one question, probably from Sangeeta ma'am, and set the context. Because when we talk of branding or when we talk of marketing, there are a lot of questions or there are a lot of points that we say or we see. So many trends are coming up. There is social media, there is digital marketing, there is um, traditional marketing techniques, there are advertising campaigns, there is AI. So I think we will touch upon everything through these questions. We will touch upon everything through these discussions and also welcome questions from the audiences midway as well as in the end. So Sangeeta ma'am, should I just start my questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, they say that reaching out to your customer or reaching out to the audience is most important as far as a brand or a business is concerned. And most recently, if I can just point out, there has been a series called Shark Tank in India where we are seeing a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, startup owners going and contesting for funds. More than that, I've also heard people saying that even if you do not get funds, you get some marketing. You are reaching out to the audience. So, what I want to ask you, Sangeeta ma'am, is, and what I want to discuss about, I'm sure this is a question that is there in everybody's mind, even in my mind as a company owner, that is it okay to kind of take all the platforms like Shark Tank as marketing platforms? Or should we set a context? Should we prioritize what we need and then move ahead? So, in terms of branding and marketing, what is more important and how do we prioritize? Taking example of Shark Tank as a medium.
Sure. No, a wonderful question, and I think it drops marketing and branding in the context of the social world and the social media world. And before we start looking at a platform and looking at the appropriateness of the platform, let me address something else that you mentioned, Anupriya. You began the conversation today by saying that this is Women's Day and branding and women both are highly adaptive, and they've been adaptive to technology, to everything that's available. And then, Asmita spoke about reshaping, redefining, and how brands are able to fulfill that role. As you speak of all that, I want to ask a fundamental question. What is a brand? What is the role of a brand, and what can it do for you as a company? And I think and I'll spend a few minutes on this, once we've spent time on this, then we will see the context of the question that you've asked me. So, to my mind, a brand is a very powerful asset that a company creates. Let me ask you a simple question. When you're very thirsty and you're out there in the, let's say, 41, 42 degrees of June, you're very, very thirsty. You want to drink something. What do you think of?
It's water. First thought is that if you can get water somewhere.
Yeah, in my time, there used to be no water because there was no potable water. So we always thought of something which was bottled, and what was available was carbonated drinks, and that was Coke and Pepsi. And
Coke and
you
Pepsi.
all they always spoke to you about thirst, and they showed those wonderful cans with cold water dripping down on the outside, etc. That's their marketing campaign. These companies have invested a lot of time, energy, effort in building the value and credibility of their brands over a long period of time. And when I say brands are powerful assets, an asset is something that you're building for the longer term. It's something that will reap you benefit as a company as you go along. It's not about what I can get out of it today. It's also about how I can build an enduring connection with the consumer longer term. So to me, there is something called something very core to that brand that appeals to my sensibility, desire, needs, requirements, whatever you want to call it, aspiration, expectation as a consumer and a customer. And to me, that is the core of a brand. And it's very important, I think, for everybody who wants to be in marketing and is in marketing to understand what is that great value that that brand should mean for the consumer and the company, both. And they become then the stakeholders who are the soul keepers, actually. And I used to call myself a soul keeper. In my book, you'll see that reference. Soul keeper of a brand, which makes sure that everything that everybody in that company is doing, right, with respect to the consumer, is going through that brand, is doing it so that the core of that brand is maintained and you live up to the expectation of what that brand means and you want it to mean to the consumer. So I think that is very fundamental. And that does not necessarily adapt and change with technology or trends. That keeps itself renovated and resonates with the consumer in many, many adaptive forms. But the core and the trust of that brand endures through time and space. And that is why you have brands, and there are many, many examples of brands, especially in the FMCG segment, which have existed in the world for years and years and years. And there are brands which have come and gone, of course. So to me, that is very fundamental. And once you understand what is the core of that brand, please recognize that a brand cannot mean all things to all people all the time. It cannot. It has to choose what it means. So Nike says, just do it. I don't think there's any other brand which is talking performance, innovation, talking to athletes in quite the way that Nike is doing it. So a brand also helps you to differentiate. How does it become a powerful asset? Because it helps you to differentiate through its identity, the way it looks, its colors, the blue and red of Pepsi, the red and white of Coke, and there are so many such examples. It distinguishes itself from the rest of the market and it builds that value for you longer term. But a very important ingredient of that is that as a company, everybody who's involved with that journey of delivering your product or service to the end consumer must be oriented towards building that brand and not doing anything to destroy the trust and confidence of the consumer. So I often used to push back to people who in the old days, and it's no longer relevant in the production days, would say that, okay, 99.99% of the time, everything is perfect. I said, well, that's 0.001% of the time. What does that poor consumer do? They still expect that shaving cream to work. They still expect that your Maggi tastemaker will taste the same. They expect that cup of coffee to be the same. So as a brand, you need to live up to the delivery of the expectation 24/7. There are no Sundays, there's no off days. 24/7, every pack you produce, every time you deliver a service. As an airline, you can't afford to say I have 99.99% safety record because that 0.101% will be dying. So, so I'm saying so that's what a brand means. I mean, you can see the example of Indigo, for example. They have a very different persona from, let's say, a Vistara or what a Jet Airways used to be. And that persona gets built over a period of time. Okay, they used to pride themselves on being just in time. They have a particular language in which they speak to the consumer. They have a particular a business equation. They have the same aircrafts. They have similar styled hairstyles of air hostesses. They have that uniform. They don't have different kinds of aircraft because they want to teach their staff to do the same things every flight that they're on, so that their brand is delivering to the consumer just so. So you don't have to, each time change what you're doing, no matter which aircraft you're on, unless you're on the Avro, which I just came on, which is a small aircraft. Yeah. Then you just do the same thing. So I wanted to make that point and then contextualize it to the platform. And now we can go to your question. So anything here anybody wants to push back or ask?
Yeah, I'll just add to this that I think with everything that you said about brands building a core, a trust, their language, I think it also trickles down to the modern day marketing, whether it's through Instagram, it's through YouTube, it's through LinkedIn, it's through WhatsApp. I think as a brand person, I have been continuously saying this, that your brand ethos needs to be the same. The base has to be the same, whether because Instagram campaigns are short lived at times. For smaller brands, maybe if I'm working with startups or I'm working with MSMEs, so they say that the campaigns are very short lived. But I think that whole value of building the trust, that whole journey of day one till day end, and how it is kind of enduring, it stays the same. I think it will be very safe to say that this stays the same no matter what you are selling, what service you're offering, what brand you're building. I think that core
Yeah.
stays the same, right?
Yeah. Anupriya, can I please introduce another thought here since we are talking about staying the same? I don't want our audience today to get the idea that, once you made this a communication piece, it has to endure over the many, many years. I think the idea is if the core of the brand is about, let's say, um, uh, good food, good taste, or it's about the fact that you can leverage your potential as an athlete, or whatever that idea is, it could be a campaignable idea. And I'll give you a very good example, which Anupriya and I maybe we'll discuss it later today, is the example of Tata Tea commercial, where the catchphrase was Jagore. And that was about, migrating a cup of tea from being something that wakes you up to something that awakens you. To, it was because it moved from being a physical rejuvenation to being intellectual rejuvenation and a reawakening or a social awakening, and that is a campaignable idea. So it started off with this corrupt politician, then it went on to voting in the year 2009. And it's again been back to voting. Then it became about women participation. And I don't know if you remember, the Power of 49 was a campaign that again Jagore ran. And most recently, it is again run a campaign to do with climate change. And so it's a campaignable idea, Jagore. So like that, there are ideas which talk to the core of the brand, which are campaignable. So your communication need not be stultified and stuck in time. Even the way you communicate can change. Who you communicate to sometimes changes because it's not a static world, right? We are all changing all the time. I mean, Maggie's consumer has changed from being that school-going child to being the entire family now, right? So, I mean, those things change and your communication changes accordingly. But the core of your brand doesn't change. It's still fast to cook. It's still good to eat. We may redefine the word good in different ways. So they put iron, they put, I don't know, many things, calcium. Sometimes they try other things. They put wheat, atta noodles, or whatever they were one trying to add to the word good. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so just to give a context, even Professor Girdhar had mentioned Jagore, and Sangeeta ma'am is saying that Jagore, the whole journey. So we have actually been able to gather few videos, and I will keep showing it to you so that you can understand the journey, what she means, how communication can change. The core has to be the same. So Asmita, if you could just play that one first video.
Anupriya, I want to answer your platform question, please, first.
Okay,
Otherwise,
sure.
we'll
Please
go on a
do that.
different track. And आपका question ना
We will
open-ended
sure,
रह
sure,
जाएगा.
sure. We will first, I
So
think, answer this blank question and then Asmita can play the video.
Asmita, just wait for a few minutes, please. So, the question you asked me is that, okay, Shark Tank has a specific role to play, but is it a good enough place to be for every business, right? Because, you get, I don't know what the viewership of that program is, but so my response to you would be, one is, if you want to be on Shark Tank for purposes other than what Shark Tank is meant for, then you're just looking for getting eyeballs, right? You're just looking for awareness. Then you have to see whether that target audience, that is the cohorts that are watching Shark Tank are really your cohorts where you're looking for awareness. Otherwise, you can create awareness, but if you're not able to punch that hole in my mind, it's a useless awareness. You spent your money, but I will not remember you as a brand. So that's number one. Number two, as you said, Anupriya, very rightly so, that if the ethos of your brand is not about being edgy, being new, being young, being startup-ish, needing help, you're an old stultified brand. I don't know. Let me take the example of what can we say is an old stultified who's ever. Let's not take a brand. Let's take a category of food. Let's say atta or
Atta,
jam
yes.
or tomato sauce. I mean something which is very sort of basic, or even chai, which is very basic. And you are on Shark Tank. You're not going to get this resonance with that kind of consumer unless you're a new kind of tea, an instant tea, which young people say, okay, I stir it and I drink it and it's as good as what mom used to make. Then you're talking to maybe to the right audience. So I'm saying you have to look at what is it that the medium is going to do for you, and what is it that it's going to do for your brand, and what are you going to do for that medium. So you have to look at that whole equation before you take some quick, rough answers like, okay, let's just be on Shark Tank. And I don't think we should ever forget that being there will require a lot of executive time, effort, presentation, all that. And would you rather spend that time, effort in doing something which is going to bring better returns for your business than being on Shark Tank? So I'll stop there.
So here I would just point out that once when she said that, you have to set a context and you have to be very mindful of your audience. So as a new age marketer, influencer campaigns is something that we work a lot with, using bloggers and influencers. And what comes to my mind is exactly this. A lot of times my brands come and tell me that, Anupriya, hey, this influencer has these many followers and I would do a campaign with this influencer only. But my only question is that, does this influencer has audience which is relevant to your brand? So I think it applies everywhere, whether it's an ad campaign, whether you are participating in resources like Shark Tank, or you're doing an influencer campaign on Instagram or your Google ads, making sure that you are catering to the audience which is beneficial to your business and what new you are offering, or if whether you're an old brand, whether you're an atta brand or a tea brand. I think whatever Sangeeta ma'am said applies everywhere unanimously. These base, as I said, that you have to really make sure that you're mindful of your audience, you're mindful of your communication, rather than wasting money or your efforts, rather than putting in efforts to a place where you're not sure. You might put in efforts to somewhere where you're sure that, okay, out of 100 people, 90 is my audience, that is my relevant audience. So I think it applies a lot to every new modern way of marketing as well. So
And
Vidya, coming.
yeah, sure. And Anupriya, I think we should just mention that, today data science is available, and data science should be used to actually clearly try to understand the profile of the audience, the profile of your target group, and understand what is their aspiration, what are they looking for, what is their behavior. So dissect it and understand it, and then look for cohorts which will really build up your business rather than just being there's a question already. Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
ready
So,
to go.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So you want to answer this question, or should we just play the video and then you want to answer the question?
I didn't read it actually.
So it says in a rapidly changing market, how do you approach adapting brand strategies to stay relevant without losing the brand's core identity? Actually, this was my next question, that do we follow the trend? So I think let's play the video. I will ask the next question and set context for Namrata, and then I think we can talk about it.
Sure, let's do that.
Asmita, could you please play the video?
आइए सर आइए आइए सर
नमस्कार।
अरे सर को नमस्कार करो
मैं आपका वोट मांगने आया
अरे
हूँ।
आइए ना सर, बैठिए। रामू काका, सर के लिए भी एक चाय है। अच्छा सर, वैसे मतलब आपका
भंवर लाल भंडारी।
और क्वालिफिकेशन?
क्वालिफिकेशन
चलिए छोड़िए, अपना वर्क एक्सपीरियंस बताइए।
25 साल से हैं इस लाइन में
सर वर्क एक्सपीरियंस मतलब कंस्ट्रक्शन, वाटर वर्क्स,
बच्चा
इंजीनियरिंग।
हमारा इंटरव्यू ले रहे हो क्या?
सर इतनी बड़ी जॉब के लिए अप्लाई किया आपने?
कौन सा जॉब?
देश को चलाने का जॉब सर। खैर चल लीजिए।
हर सुबह सिर्फ उठो मत, टाटा टी।
So I think this ad was launched much earlier. And through this was, if Man could talk about it, we mentioned Jago Ray being a brand in itself. It's a campaign for Tata Tea. But the journey we will show and we will talk about it in our conversation, that how this built up as a brand, as a campaign, and how the communication was taken from what the audience was then to what the audience is now. So, having just taking this as a base, my next question or the next discussion topic is that, yes, the times are changing. A lot of data analytics is available, data science is available. Every day we are getting new platforms. Sometimes there was Facebook, now people are on Instagram, there is Pinterest, there is LinkedIn. People want to also put in websites. So there is everything. So, how should a business decide? We spoke of audience, we spoke of communication, but is it okay to delve into everything? A lot of times we kind of get intrigued by our peers, we get intrigued by our competition, and we try to put in hands into everything, into every pocket, into every channel. But is it okay? And if it is not okay, then as Namrata said, that how can we stay relevant without losing the brand's core identity, without following the fashion, without following the trend and getting into everything which might not be relevant for our business and our audience?
Yeah, I think that's a very, that's a very, that's a question which can be answered only contextually, really, because we don't today have a context. I mean, there isn't a specific query regarding any particular campaign. But I'll just mention to you that, you remember some of the campaigns have got a lot of negative feedback because they were not sensitive to religion. They were not sensitive socially in some cases. And sometimes I feel that, brands have done that just to stir the pot, so to speak, to create that controversy and to get consumer attention. But I think it's a dangerous track to go on because people can get, they can get quite upset. Especially if you are making an emotional connection with the consumer, which a lot of brands eventually get to. They move out of functionality, they move out of benefit orientation to more an emotional connection to the consumer. And that gets violated. So I think you have to be careful and not leap into everything. Though, as I say that, you have to be seen to follow the trend. So you can't be, you can't be living in the year 2024 with both your feet in the year 1994. I think consumers would certainly not accept that. It's very important, Anupriya, I think, as marketers to remember that brands will outlive you and me. Brands will outlive us. And brands can outlive us if they move with the times. So how do you move with the times while preserving your core? And I think a river is a good example of that. The boulders in the river don't move, but the river keeps flowing. So there's a core of the brand in the company, which has to be like that boulder, which is unshakable. But the rest of the brand, its ethos, its presentation, its connection to the consumer themselves changes. I mean, we cannot talk, the Maggi noodles ad that was done in the year 1982 for the launch. You show that now to the children, they laugh at you because those children are in a different time and space now. Completely different. Their whole orientation is different. They are from the age of 2. They are tech savvy children. They are, and I have a granddaughter. I can tell you this. From the age of 2, she'd been pushing the telephone buttons as if she'd grown up with it. Okay, so they're very different. So you have to move with the times in that sense. But I think beyond that, it's very difficult for me to particularly answer that question. You definitely. So this is my best way of describing it. Is River.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll make it little easy for you or little contextual for you. So what happens is that, okay, we are talking of staying relevant. There is a major factor that plays a role here, which is money, budgets. A lot of times I hear from my brands that, Anupriya, we know that this will not work for us and that will work for us. Instagram is not for us, but LinkedIn is. But we do not have the budgets. And to stay in the market, we need some visibility. So if we have smaller budget, so in this budget, whatever works, let's do that. Is that the right approach?
Well, if you don't have more than a certain amount of money, you have to cut your coat according to the cloth. It's a very old saying. We grew up being taught that, cut your coat according to your cloth. And then now the world is all about mortgage, debt, leverage. What is your debt leverage in a company? How much can you borrow and how much can you live outside the coat? So that's the current language. But if budgets are a constraint, I would say one of the good ways to try to leverage that budget well is to more closely look at data science and to look at user behavior and to be even more particular about every rupee you spend and actually do some testing, because very easy to test on social media. It's very quick, it's very easy, it's cheap, because you can quickly put together a message and you can quickly check how is the consumer responding. So I would say that if budget is a constraint, you cannot leap into everything. You have to be even more particular about looking at what user profile fits well with the audience profile of that particular channel. What is the ethos of that channel? Does it sit well with the brand ethos that you are trying to propagate? Is there any particular contribution you're looking for from that channel? I mean, what will Pinterest do differently for you from an Instagram, for example? And if you are not everywhere, then can you slice and dice by geography? That sometimes helps, because you're not present everywhere. Maybe you're not. And it can bring down some of your costs. And you could certainly test and then, pick and see what you want to use.
Right. I think I can very well relate to it. That's how we roll out our campaigns, specifically Google campaigns. The more we narrow down on our audience selection, on geographical selection, the more money and the more efforts can be saved. And, we can channelize everything to that particular communication and campaign.
Can I mention one other aspect, please, here, Anupriya? Because I think what generative AI and AI in the past have helped to do is to customize your messaging, micro customization and micro segmentation. So I think for brands with limited money, they should definitely be very particular and look at micro segmentation and micro customization. And that is possible to do. And if it is relevant to you, you could actually create a hype around what you're saying by making it even more contextual. So looking for an occasion. I don't know if it is to do with Diwali or Holi or Christmas, a festival, or it is linked to women, or it's linked to a special day in a man's life, or I don't know, whatever. So you can look at those kind of avenues. Maybe it's something to do with cricket, but you can't afford to be a part of the IPL because it's very, very expensive. So maybe you look at some other way of getting that kind of messaging across, because it's a men's cologne or whatever it is, which you want to target at the male audience.
Okay. I think we have one more question. Nayana says how women can effectively create a business case around their ideas of brand promotion. If I get the question correctly, how can women effectively create a business case around their ideas of brand promotion?
Business case around the ideas of brand promotion. So is this a communication company? Is it an advertising? What is it? Is it a creative company?
Nayana, if you are there, could I please ask Asmita to allow Nayana to speak? Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
please.
hi, Sangeeta ma'am. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So my question was around the effectiveness of communication. When it comes to women to pitch their ideas at the right forum in the right way, so that they are accepted. Because when it comes to brand promotion, everybody contributes, and typically in an organization, the high management is comprising of male, and sometimes all the women are at the executive level and at the higher up, but still the proportion is less. So many a times women may find it challenging to pitch their ideas and how to do this effectively. And it should apply to any kind of a product-based company.
Okay, sure. So this is more in the context of your own personal branding and how to present yourself and how
Correct.
to do it in a way that your idea finds currency with the people who are the decision makers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I can give you some basics. They may or may not sound extremely innovative to you, but I think one of the basics is number one, to be a great believer in your idea yourself. And if you are a great believer in your idea yourself, you will come to it from a space of passion and commitment, which is easily recognizable in any presentation at any group level. Number two, the idea that you are presenting must be something that will work brilliantly for the organization. It cannot be something that will only work for the department, group, person, team. It has to be something which contributes significantly towards the organization growth and health. So I always say to all working professionals, you have to think organization first, always. They pay you to do a job. That's your first job in working hours. And they don't owe you more than what they promised you, actually. So whatever you can get is largest. So, but the idea must work for the organization. And number three, I think you have to be sensitive to the environment. So choose a time which is appropriate. I mean, if the company's fortunes are in question, if it's COVID, if for some reason profits are very bad because some fundamental raw material cost has shot through the roof, those are not good times to present new ideas. Nobody will listen to you because everybody is fighting the fire, trying to quell it, trying to understand how to bring that bottom line and that profit line up. So choose the timing appropriately so that there is your idea is not thrown out of the window. And fourth is try to co-opt as many non-naysayers, people who agree with you, who agree with the idea. So try to co-opt that kind of, let me say, support from the room that you're going to be presenting your idea to. So when the boss sort of starts to hear other people saying, yeah, that sounds good, that's great, that's workable, they get more convinced that, yeah, this idea will work. So this is fundamental to presenting any idea. It's not fundamental to which gender you belong to. Okay, this is basic to presenting anything new to senior management. I think from a gender perspective, I'll be frank with you. I come from an era when there were no women in business. There were hardly any women in business. So I've never let it sort of stand in my way. However, while I say that, it's very important to have a high EQ and emotional intelligence to read the room. They say read the tea leaves. I think you have to read the room and see how you should present yourself. So whether you need to be more assertive, I won't say pushy, I think that's a wrong word, but whether you need to be more assertive and clear and decisive in the way you present, or do you need to be less of those and be more quiet, more sensitive, more humble in presenting your idea? That's how you read the room, and then you just do it. Okay, I hope that's
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta ma'am. So we have questions pouring in.
Pouring in, okay.
Yes, I think Himanshu is there and he's asked a question. But before that, is there anything from our discussion, from any questions that you want to highlight. There is this quote that I read from your book, which says, "Is it important to be the first, or is it important to be the first choice?" So I think with all the discussion that we are having, and even the question that Himanshu has asked, if you answer that and if you talk about the quote of yours, it will make sense. Himanshu says that what care should we take while creating a campaign which does not dilute the message? For example, we also make steel by Tisco. So again, I think it suits. It's completely okay to ask again and to quote again that how, and if you could explain that it is more important to be the first or be the first choice. How important the clear communication is, so that the message does not get diluted and we stay relevant in the market.
Okay, let me give that a shot. Being the first choice or being first in the market is a decision you make whether you want to move yourself from being a trademark to becoming a love mark with the consumer, or you want to, you have something new to offer and you want to be the first to offer it so that you can quickly gain market share and brownie points with the consumer. So I think it's a choice you have to make between those two. And I think the very important decision there is quite often you'll notice that consumers don't give you too many options and opportunities. So if you want to be successful and you have come to the market with something new, you need to make sure that it's your best foot forward. Because if there are a lot of disappointed consumers, they are not going to come back into your fold very quickly. So whether it's a new technology, a new technical device that you're offering, it could be a food product, beverage, some clothing item. It could be a cologne which went wrong because some ingredient was not dosed properly. So if you lose the early consumers, which you have spent a lot of money to get to your brand, who try it and they don't like it, you're going to have a difficult time getting them back. So that's what that sentence means. If you want to be first or you want to be the first choice. You want to be the first choice, you have to make sure that whatever your strategy is, you are executing it brilliantly. Because no business made profit because they had a good strategy. They can only make profit when you transact business of your product or service. And you can only transact that business by being excellent in your execution and reaching your consumer and customer in the way that you wanted to. So that's, and I think not diluting the message is a very important thing in the context of who is the message meant for and what is the occasion for the message. So you will find that around IPO time, there are a lot of companies that start advertising because they simply want to create some buzz around their initial public offering, their equity shares. You'll find that companies, when they move on, and I'll give you this clear example of why did we do Jagore? Tata Tea is a huge brand. The company didn't intend to create another brand. The company's intention was very simple. In the month of June 2007, Tata Tea had overtaken its next rival in terms of value and volume market share in the world's largest tea market, that's India. So Tata Tea became the world's largest selling tea. And the whole team said, hold on a moment, this is a leadership position. Are we behaving like leaders? No. We're just doing, more of what everybody else is doing. So how can you distinguish yourself and take a leadership position in that market and behave like a leader? And that's thought leadership. And we said, what can tea do, which links to the DNA of every Indian consumer? And that's how this whole thing about migrating tea from being a cup, which is refreshing, rejuvenating, to social awakening. And whether as a citizen, you are participating in what's happening around you, or you're just, saying, ignoring it all and saying, okay, I'm not involved in the politics, though you will keep complaining about the bad roads and the lack of water and whatever other civic amenities you don't get enough of. So that was the whole idea, to move it to a platform of social awakening and to involve the youth who were going for the easier option of drinking coffee and stirring it in a cup rather than making themselves a good cup of tea with tea leaves. So it was also to move the brand, give it a younger persona. So there were a lot of objectives to this whole campaign idea. And to the world, it may seem, oh, Tata Tea was talking about so many other things, winning your competition, having that cup of tea, feeling refreshed. And why are they now talking about Jagore? So that was the context. So companies, so even we make steel, we also make steel, would have been in a particular context. The idea is not to dilute your positioning. Because steel, what do you say about steel? I mean, if you're the largest steel producer, there was some context to this campaign which I'm also not aware of. And I don't buy steel and I don't use steel. So, does that help to answer Himanshu's question a little bit? Do you want to add to that, Anupriya?
No, I think you very well stated a whole clear narrative. And I would probably, if you allow me, I would play the second Jagore video that we have.
Sure.
Because it shows the journey. And then probably I'll also show something which is very relevant in today's time and the most recent Instagram campaigns that Jagore is doing. So Asmita, could you just play the second, the women speaking at Jagore, that second video for us, please?
Yes.
अलार्म अभी बजा नहीं। किसान अभी मरा नहीं। अभी ये ब्रिज गिरा नहीं। खिलाड़ी अभी हारा नहीं। और अभी यहाँ रेप हुआ नहीं। ब्रिज गिरने दो, किसान को आत्महत्या करने दो, मेडल हारने दो और रेप होने तो दो। अलार्म थोड़ा बजने तो दो। अलार्म बजे तो हम उठेंगे, फिर काफी काम है हमें। कैंडल मार्च यहाँ, हड़ताल वहाँ, व्हाट्सएप पे आग लगाना है, फेसबुक पे गुस्सा दिखाना है, ब्लैक फ्राइडे हंगर स्ट्राइक काला बैंड पहनना है, एक्टिविज्म को जगाना है। पर फिलहाल अलार्म बजा नहीं। अगला अलार्म बजने से पहले जागो 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 रे। टाटा टी।
So can I just mention, Anupriya, that I want to just mention here, this was 10 years after the campaign, first Jagore campaign started. And this is a great example to demonstrate how the core of the idea of Jagore didn't change, which was about social awakening. And that social awakening idea has just been morphed. And that's what I mean by a campaignable idea. So this whole social awakening shift and, this thought leadership drive for Tata Tea has endured the test of time. And even till today, and that's the next one you're going to show, is still about social awakening and how you, as an Aam Aadmi, as a normal citizen who drinks chai, which is part of your DNA, can link into this idea and do something for the country, do something which is larger than yourself. So be a leader, be a thought leader yourself, So that's the whole campaignability of that idea that started way back in 2007, the Jagore campaign. And I want to quickly also just mention that this is a very bold campaign which you just showed us. And I think this is also symbolic of having built that trust and that endurance with the consumer to stand such a bold statement from a brand. Otherwise, brands would think many times before, stating this kind of thing publicly, on television and all the social media. But the consumer, because of the kind of trust and the kind of connection, emotional connection they have to Tata Tea, as well as to the whole Jagore idea, it allows them that space, to be so bold.
I think rightly said, ma'am. And if we look at other campaigns of Tata Tea, I was just going through the Instagram pages, Jagore, and parallelly there are other campaigns like Desh Ke Dhage, Desh Ki Chai. Everything has that social message, and it also follows the contemporary requirements of we had be vocal for local handlooms. A lot of youth is now delving into startups that are related to handlooms. So I think, and Desh Ke Dhage is a campaign from Tata Tea which caters to that. But the whole ethos which Jagore had, and when we will look at the other video later, I think we will be able to make sense of it.
Yeah, and
so
I want
there
to
is-
just mention another thing here. Just the
Yes.
point that you were making earlier on social media. I think it's very, very important. Whatever social media you're using and traditional media that you're using, that brand message, which is core to the brand, is always communicated. And you're not saying some completely different thing, just because that adapts to the medium. So that core must be always retained, the core of the brand.
Right. I think, so I would take this question that is coming from Professor Girdhar, and it's a different question. We've been talking about brands, we've been talking about communication. So sir says that, do you believe digital platforms and social media offers new opportunities to women to shape brand narratives and influence marketing strategies, especially rural India? I would just take an opportunity to first add to this, and then probably ma'am can share her experiences. Definitely, sir, because as per my experience in the last 5 to 6 years, I have worked with a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Kiran Bedi ma'am has an organization called the National Youth Foundation. So we have actually worked with few ladies there. Definitely, social media gives an edge to these ladies because it's easy. They have phones, and the hesitation that they have to face the world offline is not there when they have to kind of leverage online channels. So they get an upper hand. When it comes to talking on WhatsApp, when it comes to sitting and talking to them and recording a video, we have seen there is a difference. We have seen that they have been able to express themselves. We have seen that they have been able to we have been able to churn out good content in terms of pictures, in terms of making LinkedIn accounts for them, and giving them an edge to leverage and to shape their brand narratives. Of course, it has been a little slow for the rural cohort. And for us, people like us, the more vibrant and the more urban ladies, I think it's very important. And I always say that parallelly, they've been building their organizational brands as well as their personal brand. So when you say that, does it give opportunities? It definitely does. It gives them an easy platform. As ma'am said that, it's got very easy to give to test, to quickly test something, it is working for you or not. So that has become easy. And because of that, opportunities, resources have become a little more easier for us. Of course, it is not very easy to create that brand narrative and to create that communication, but trials and tests have become easy. So, ma'am, if you would want to add to this, that um, how it helps.
Sangeeta, well, just a minute. I'll just interrupt a bit here,
Sure.
picking on from what Anupriya just said, and that's actually the next question that I had asked after Namrata's was posted, which is basically what is it that we can, as individuals, borrow from the whole corporate branding principles, right? So increasingly everybody is now needing a personal brand, right? And of course, digital tools make it even more possible for us to build one. So what are some principles that we should think of which can help us to stand out well in this day and age when there's a lot more competition and so on? So just because it's related to the earlier one, I presented it here, but yeah, we can take it the way you want to answer.
Sure, but we can take it right away. So, you mentioned these are. It's easy to create personal branding now, right? I would ask, what is the objective of creating that personal branding? What does that person want to achieve? What do they want to do? Do they just want to say, I'm Ramvati from so and so village? Or does she want to say something else? That I'm Ramvati, I'm the Sarpanch of this village, and XYZ, I'm doing XYZ things, and I need your help with ABC. I don't know. So to me, that is most important, Professor Gaither, is what is the idea of launching a personal brand? Potentially, there can be today 7.5 billion personal brands on social media because that's the population of the world. And it's a lot of noise because you and I will not be interacting with even 0.00001% of that personal branding. So to what end is that personal branding? That's my first question. And then after that, once we are clear on that, then we can look at, is there any mnemonic we want to create around a name, or just the way every time we appear, and it may be just a person who's trying to build a business around their own persona and their own, maybe they do some work where they talk to people, or they hold programs where they talk to people about various things. So, they want to build their personal brand. Or they want to launch a company and do something else. So I think that's the first thing. Other thing is, what is the mnemonic you want to create? You want to create a name, a logo, a sound, whatever, something which is distinctive and can fit with the ethos of what is it that you're trying to create. So if you are, I don't know, you want to teach some musical instrument as a teacher, and you want to launch a brand as a musical instrument teacher, you may want to use a few notes of music as a signature every time somebody clicks on a link where they will find you. So that's creating a brand identity. And then what is it that you want to be known for? So you may want to talk about that. You may want to write about that. You may want to get other people to recommend you, saying those same few adjectives that you want people to remember about the product or service that you're offering. Those could be some of the principles of branding. So the principles don't really change. So you'd be clear, what is it you want to achieve? How is it that you want to appear? What is it that you want to say? Why do you want to say that? And you answer these questions, and then you always, everything you do has to have the same answer to these 4 questions.
In fact, I am just want to. There is this lady in Uttar Pradesh, Kaushambi, and she's a big hit in YouTube. Her YouTube channel is actually English with Dehati Madam, and she has these bite-sized lessons on YouTube where she speaks now almost flawless English. And she learned everything on her own, and she uses that to teach people in her community. And I think that's where I had this need for this question. Now she's used technology, she's used social media to really build her brand, get way outside the league of the village, and have an international repute actually.
So no, that's great. So I visit a lot of corporate social responsibility programs for various companies, and somebody who's in education, they were holding remote classes with 1,000 students out there in village India, okay, in different languages for STEM subjects. So they picked up the course that runs in that state for classes 9, 10, 11, 9 and 10. And they did all the STEM program in the local language, beamed to 1,000 students who, they probably go to a school nearby, but this is add-on tutorials for them to pass their exams and to do even better. So now with the kind of LLM modules which are coming up, and with the whole move on quantum computing and all of that, I mean, everything is going to be in India. Google has had 14 languages for the last 10 years plus. but there are people who are working on Bhasha, so they've got all the dialects and everything. So language is no longer going to be a barrier. I think already the statistic is 950 million mobile phones in the country, or 1,000 million, something like that. So we have a very large number of people who can be connected. On some of the social media, the numbers are astonishing. 450 million people in the country using, I don't want to name the brands, but various social media channels. So there's a very large amount of reach, and I think it's a great democratizer. It's a great social equalizer, the whole internet space.
Yes, I think I recently had a chance to meet Chavi Rajawat, who's the youngest sarpanch in one of the village Soda in Rajasthan. So there was a similar kind of conversation that was happening because she's very active on Instagram and how she's working with her local ladies. Or my mentor, Dr. Urvashi Sahani, who's in Uttar Pradesh, she's also working with girls from different underprivileged backgrounds. And sometimes what we find is that they are much better in terms of marketing strategies and their communication. So the penetration and the reach is increasing now. So I think it is reaching, as ma'am said, that it is reaching everywhere. And social media has some amazing numbers and communication strategies that people are using. So yeah, that's definitely growing.
I just have one problem with all this, which is a problem you find everywhere, is that everyone is so busy looking at their phone that they forget to live life. There's nothing up, they just need that phone, a little bit of food and a roof over their head, and they don't want to aspire for anything else in life.
Yes,
So
that's the problem. It's the cons of it.
A bit of a problem.
Right, the cons of it. I've got questions. Anupriya, we don't want to be social and we don't want to build a brand. And we can't live our life as per that little phone. Then what do you suggest? But then, this is a con that we will have to deal with. But we cannot just leave it like that.
Yeah, so I sometimes I talk to people, I ask them one question. I said, for some reason, God has been little unkind to you. You have a major operation. And the guy who's just cutting you, okay, his girlfriend messages him on Facebook. Do you want him to look at his phone or do you want him to focus on your surgery? Just answer that question. Said, no, he must focus on my surgery. I said, so your job is your surgery, yeah? You have to focus on your job. No, why are you just looking at your phone? It is extraneous to something else that you're doing. Now, that contextualization is today gone missing. And that, I think, is the root of a lot of issues. Everybody is living, but there are people now talking about detox of social media. There's a whole new business area called detox of social media.
And there are more campaigns for detoxification also. Detoxification from social media has 10,000 other detoxification campaigns, and we end up sharing detoxification pictures on Instagram, and competing who did the better detox. So I think that has also got its pros and cons.
I think that core of the human nature is never going to change, huh?
Yes. It will not change. It will not change. We have a question by Aisha. And Aisha, I would request you to please put on your mic and clarify. It says, in today's age, does diversity, equity, and inclusion promote or prevent the growth of a brand?
And my question to you is, why should it do either? Why should it either promote or prevent the growth of a brand? What has it got to do with the brand?
Is Aisha here? Aisha?
Yeah, I don't think she's here. I can't see her.
Okay. So I think very simply, if that's a trend which you think that your brand will gain by being a part of, there's no harm in using that as something that the brand is a part of, but it has to be relevant. I mean, I don't know.
There has been instances when you had recent backlashes of brands taking up or even being seen as inclusive, right? Starbucks, Tanishq. So they wanting to be inclusive could be stemming from their own corporate values, but then they are ending up having this backlash and having to take knee-jerk reactions for that. I think that's where this
Absolutely.
question possibly came up from.
Yeah, and I think it can just be a narrative. You are absolutely right. It doesn't have to get or to the stage of being preventive or being promotional. It doesn't have to do
So,
with growth.
Anupriya, may I point out, please, another thing which I have become aware of increasingly? Organizational structures are today sliced and diced. Okay. In my time, I was a sole keeper. No matter what happened to the brand, be it technical, purchase, whatever was happening on the brand, I was always in the know of it because it impacts the product, the brand in some manner. Okay. Today, everything has become so sliced and diced. I think half of the people who work on the brand in different areas don't even know what it stands for. They have no clue. So there's nobody who is saying that look through everything that we're doing, maybe using 100 influencers, maybe I don't know, using 2,000 hyper personalized messaging. Everything, the ethos is in tune with what the brand wants to communicate, and that is where these things happen. Because somebody comes at it, says, "Oh, this is a trend. Why don't we quickly produce a commercial and launch it on so and so channel, and we be part of the trend?" Yes, you will get a spike because you're part of the trend. But as Professor Girdhar said, if you've been socially insensitive, you will get a backlash. And is that going to build your brand for the future, or is it going to take away from your brand? That's the question you have to answer.
Namrata has another question to add to what we've been discussing. I'll quickly just share that so that we can answer and So she says that I would further like to know that since you've been involved in building and reshaping iconic brands, what in your experience are the key elements that contribute to building a lasting and impactful brand in today's competitive market? What are your key elements?
So I think we've already mentioned a lot of these key elements,
Yes.
which is, a brand has to stand for something and has to mean something to the consumer and connect to the consumer in many ways. So it could be functionality, it could be benefits, it could be emotionally, it could be just being a brand that is always on the edge with the latest trend. Whichever way the brand connects with the consumer, that connection must endure the test of time. And so you cannot every day change what your brand stands for. So I think it's very, very important to decide what the brand stands for today. And that might change as time goes by. And so you need to, a great example is, let's take something like Cadbury's chocolate. Okay. It didn't start off by saying, meetha acha hota hai. And now it's not saying meetha acha hota hai. Because the whole thing is turned on its head about sugar, diabetes, all that. So you got to stay relevant, but the basics of the brand have to endure the test of time. So I think that's fundamental. Your mnemonic, your identity, more or less stays the same. You could of course make it. Lots of brands change the way they write themselves. So maybe you had bold capital letters earlier, because you wanted to make sure that the brand name always appeared in the same manner and all the material you used. But now you can be far more flexible on that because you're talking at least half of your money on social media. So it's all about video content and all of that. So it's you change with the time, but you keep the core the same. I think that is a fundamental principle of it.
Right. Before I answer Asmita's question, do you think it's the time that we should show the third video, which is Jagore
Yeah,
campaign?
we could because we should close in about 10 minutes, right?
Yes. So Asmita, if you could just play the third video so that we can complete the conversation of the brand journey that we've been talking about, and then we will answer your question as well.
Sure.
Welcome, parents. We are ready to begin. Kindly settle down.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, but all the water had dried up. The world was now much hotter. So Jack and Jill sat on the hill. Their throats were so dry, they couldn't find a drop to drink. And one day, neither will I. मछली जल की थी रानी, जीवन उसका था पानी, पर पानी में प्लास्टिक फेंकते रहे हम, मछली को तरपते हुए बस देखते रहे हम। धीरे धीरे मर गई मछलियाँ सारी, रह गए बस फेंकी हुई चीजें हमारी। Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the smoggy sky, I have never seen you. I wonder why. The smoke, it makes my chest so tight. For every breath, I must fight. Mummies and daddies, आपके बचपन की फेवरेट पोएम्स बदल जाएंगी, क्योंकि हमारा बचपन क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से बदल रहा है। इससे लड़ने के लिए हम सबको चेंज होना पड़ेगा। क्लाइमेट चेंज से हम कैसे लड़ सकते हैं, जानिए jagore.com पर।
Welcome, parents. We are ready to begin. Kindly settle down.
Thank you, Asmita. So I think this is the most recent Jagore campaign that was done, and it is, I think, most contemporary. It kind of, so you know, the brand, the ethos stays the same. Sangeeta ma'am, if you could talk about how the communication has changed, and you know, it is more relevant to the contemporary times.
Yeah, so I think that's what we've been talking about for quite a while now, and that's the idea of building something which is campaignable. There's another very nice campaign that I was associated with in the past, which was called It's Different. It was a hot and sweet and tomato ketchup commercial from Maggie, which used Pankaj Khanna and Javed Jafri as the two protagonists who keep arguing about the sauce. So, and I was just want to mention that when you come across a idea which is campaignable, you can see how it endures the test of time, because it always, you can refresh it to make it resonate with the consumer. And I think that's what we just saw in the last commercial that you showed us, Anupriya.
Right. Quickly, we have a question here saying that could you share a few examples where you think that the product was good, but it could not reach its potential due to ineffective branding or marketing, where the branding didn't work or the marketing activity didn't work?
I would say, it would be quite pointless to try to dig out these examples because you wouldn't have heard of them. If it didn't work, it's probably died a quiet death.
I will probably take a very recent example. Since we are in the era of Facebook, YouTube, Instagram Reels. So I'm forgetting the name of this influencer. She just did a campaign to spread awareness about cancer on Instagram, where she started by announcing that her friends announced that she's dead due to cancer.
Died. Yeah. I came across that.
And then she revived herself. So I just felt it was a waste of platform and a waste of person and waste of a campaign like, spreading awareness for cancer. So I think that kind of branding and marketing is more, it's not needed. And this kind of gimmick, I think, would have never been thought probably 10 or 12 years ago. Now it is being thought, but these things, they don't work. So as I said, that jumping into trends and fashion just to brand or market something will not work. So it failed. And the agency and everybody had to kind of roll out apology letters. So it didn't work. In fact, there is this movie, I saw some Bollywood movie in which there is an ad. It's an ad about a laddu. It says that, these females, they show an ad where the women of the house, they are making sure that the men who go out for office work or in the market, they are making laddus for the men. Now here it is pointed out that this ad will not work. The female of the house says this ad will never work. So they say, why? Because she said that it is today's women. Today's men don't only work, women also work. Why can't they both make laddus for each other and go to office together? So this campaign will not work. So I think these are the little few things which don't work. As ma'am has been continuously saying, that if you know the context right, if you know your audience, you need to set the context as per your situations. You have to change. We saw the Jagore communication as well, when that politician was there. Then the second was that how they talked about the society, and third, how they talked about climate change. So I think that communication and relevance is important. Then your marketing or your branding activities will definitely work. You have to make sure that you stay contemporary. You can't do a campaign in 2024 relating to 1999 or vice versa. So I think, yeah, that is something which does not work.
I just want to also mention, Anupriya, that since we are talking campaign, and that's the ones you just recently mentioned, all of these campaigns, they went across so many different media with the same look and feel, just adapted to the medium. So that that message uniformly gets right across the country. So in fact, one of the charts that I shared with you, Anupriya, today showed a 360-degree surround where no matter what the brand did in 2007, wherever it was present, it came across reinforcing that same message. Because as a consumer, we're exposed to thousands of messages in a day. And how do you make sure that something sticks? By repeating it.
Yes.
And that's the idea of being clear on the ethos and therefore being able to adapt it to the media.
I think as Professor says that Amul is an example, and what I can think of is Pond's is a great example. We had that white bottle of Pond's cream that used to come earlier in our days. And now we have these nice, trendy, light blue bottles of Pond's cream, which are gel-based, which is catering to the youngsters more. So we don't want to use those sticky Pond creams that moms used to, keep in their closets. We are more happy to use these gel-based Pond's creams. So I think both of us are happy with the different Pond's brand and the different products that are there. So I think Amul and Pond's are two good examples. I would suggest, if anybody wants to ask any question, or if there is anything that anyone wants to say, any participant wants to share, the stage is open for all of you. Sir, if you want to add anything, Professor Girdhar, if you want to add anything, I would be happy to then close the conversation. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question? Anybody who wants to add something, give an example, share a campaign or an experience with us? Okay. So I think, there is this, as I was also reading a few interviews of yours, Sangeeta ma'am, and some articles that you had written, to kind of summarize on my part and to kind of understand what we just spoke of. There is this one line which had caught my attention. It says, getting to the consumer today is all about embedding experiences. So I think, and that experience is not just a word. I think it's a whole ecosystem. And that ecosystem has communication, that ecosystem has content, language, relevance, ethos, clarity, innovation. So that experience for me is an ecosystem with whatever you've explained right now. And that ecosystem is just growing. So what do you have to say, Sangeeta ma'am, and how do you summarize it?
No, I think it's more and more challenging now, because the consumer is potentially in touch with the CEO all the time. So it's not easy to run a business these days, because potentially anybody who gets in touch with the company needs a response, and you have to set up your response systems within just a few hours, right? So there are companies who have very clear social media tracking systems in order to make sure that any consumer with any kind of query is answered, and not just by a chatbot. So I think it's a difficult time. There's a plethora of media which is available. There's also something which didn't exist in the past, which is the access to each and every consumer. You can actually email. You can draw up a list of 10,000 consumers and individually speak to 10,000 people or 10 million people if you had that ability. And technology is going to give you that ability to actually micro customize to 10 million consumers. And that's going to create a whole new opportunity for brands and marketing. I think I just want to again ring the caution bell on generative AI, because generative AI may actually start to destroy brands by generating a lot of content which actually didn't come from the brand at all and just got generated on the net by itself. And part of this, like this girl who pretended to be dead, there were other people who got killed also on social media in the recent past. And that was nothing to do, the source of the information was not the person or the company, it was just some generative mismatch which had happened on social media. So I think that's something to be very, very cognizant of. And that may take down brands. And I don't know how are people going to find systems to prevent that. So the way I see it, generative AI is going to become more and more in-company tool, which the company will use within the organization to actually build, to increase their own efficiency and effectiveness with respect to their business and their consumers.
Yeah, I think it's relevant, and it definitely will be more prominent and more dominating. And we are, I think it's not, I will not call it a backlash, but we are experiencing a lot of use of generative AI, chat GPT, so many resources that are coming up that are also being used by brand owners at different levels. So yeah, definitely, I think that whole ecosystem is growing, and we just have to see how the trends change and how the brands.
Anupriya, you have your job cut out for you. It's going to be more and more challenging.
Yes, it's going to be more and more challenging. I think you're absolutely right. And I hope that, I am able to stick to the base that I have and adapt as per the trends. Thank you so much, Sangeeta ma'am. Over to you, Asmita. I think we've had a wonderful discussion. You may lead the way now.
Let me know if I'm audible.
You are.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. It was a wonderful discussion, and those small bits of videos added to the content of it. So thank you so much. On behalf of Jamshedpur Management Association, I extend a warm vote of thanks to each and every one of you for joining this amazing session with Women Transforming Brands. We are deeply grateful to our distinguished speakers, Ms. Sangeeta Talwar and Ms. Anupriya Agarwal, for sharing their insights, experiences, and expertise with us. Your perspectives have not only enlightened us, but also inspired us to think the way we perceive brands and pivotal role that women play in shaping their narratives. Thank you both. We look forward to hosting you at Jamshedpur for future collaborations. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the attendees for their enthusiastic engagement, for all the questions that they asked. Thank you so much. It has been very enriching discussion because of you. Special thanks to Professor Giridhar for joining us on such a short notice. Our parent body, IMA, and the IMA team, Rhythm, Anubhav sir, and Sanjay sir, whose support made this event possible. And of course, our JMA team, Anushka, Vinay, Amitabh sir, for their support. We have many exciting programs coming up. Please follow JMA on social media platforms for regular updates. As we conclude this insightful webinar, let's carry forward the lessons learned and the inspirations gained to empower women and drive positive transformation in our brands and organizations. Sangeeta ma'am earlier mentioned a brand should stand for something. It cannot be everything to everyone. So I think it holds true for every person. It's important to be yourself, stand for yourself, and love yourself. On that note, let's end today's session. Have a very happy Women's Day. Thank you and take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.